what I realized was it was so much deeper than just the left versus right. Okay. And that maybe if I was feeling this way and I could think about what I was doing that was actually making me feel more unsafe and more disconnected and more hatred and more like anger, then maybe other people needed to hear this as well. And so that is why I kind of thought of what I would do if America was a couple on my couch.
Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more. All to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Eyes Wide Open. Our guest today is Amber Trejo. Amber is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a certified clinical trauma professional who specializes in childhood trauma and integrative trauma therapy. She's dedicated her work to helping survivors heal from childhood abuse and neglect so that they can live the life that they dream of. Online, you may know her as the integrative trauma therapist from Instagram or your website or your work that you've done there. And Amber, thanks for coming on today. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Nick?
I am so good to be talking to you. It's something I'm super excited about and been looking forward to ever since we connected on Instagram a few weeks ago. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to talk to you too. I was so excited when I got your message, and it's just been great getting to know you so far.
Yeah. Same to you. So just a little background, and then we'll actually, let's just start with my favorite question to ask everyone is, what did you want to be when you were a little kid, and how did that change to lead you to becoming a therapist and specifically focusing on working with people who have childhood trauma or trauma in general?
Yeah, what did I want to be when I was a little kid? I wanted to be a famous singer. So very different. This was my plan B.
Who was inspiring you?
Amy Grant, Paula
yeah.
Abdul, I loved New Kids on the Block. I was a huge fan. But I just loved, singing, and I'm a very creative person. So that's what I wanted to be at first. When that dream, started to fade a little bit and I got a little more realistic, I really wanted to be a social worker. And I really wanted to work with kids that were being abused and neglected. That was always something that I just had so much empathy for and such a heart for. And so I had a lot of my own trauma growing up, had a lot of my own experiences that really just gave me so much empathy for other children in the same situation. And so I thought I would be a social worker. When I went to school, though, I ended up having an intro to counseling class, and I talked with my students when we would have to do these role plays, like my fellow colleagues, my fellow students that I was in class with. And I realized I was a really good therapist, and they would start pouring out their hearts to me and crying like in our 15-minute kind of like basic role plays. And I realized I also just loved it. And so I ended up becoming a therapist, and I decided to specialize in trauma because, of course, my heart for trauma and my heart for children who come from broken homes and who come from a lot of traumatic experiences. And I found that working with people through their own trauma heals the entire family, heals our communities, heals our nation, heals everything. So that's really what I'm passionate about.
I think that's such a good answer, by the way.
Thanks. I just felt like I was like spewing that out like I was like on a pageant or something. I don't know what just took over me. Okay.
It was good. And I actually, I like how you social work's different, but it's, you're kind of like sort of moving in this direction. And then you had that moment where you realized, oh, this is the direction I actually want to go in. I think for a lot of people, that doesn't always happen that way. The point of this question is because I've learned that a lot of people get pushed into capitalism after having big, beautiful dreams as kids. And then it's like, well, wait a minute. I can't make money painting. I can't make money. I actually, as we were talking about a little before, I, as a kid, wanted to be a WWE wrestler. So
yes.
That was.
I love that for you.
Yeah. Yes. That was such a big one for me growing up. And I actually did 2 days in wrestling school because my dad was like, I think I was like 16 or 17. He's like, I want you to try it because if you don't try it, you're never going to know and you're always going to wonder. They beat the crap out of me and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And that was over. So the dream was from like 3 years old till about 16. And then that dream was gone.
Yeah, but you had to try it though. I love that your dad
Yeah.
encouraged you like that too. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So I think that was a really, really great answer. And I look at, some of your content and how I found you, which we'll get to in a minute. But what do you find? I see you have a lot of content about like even for millennials, right? And I feel like millennials are sort of leading the pack, and you can correct me if your experience is different, but leading the pack on, hey, it's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to end the generational trauma that I think a lot of people, I don't know how old you are. I think we're close-ish in age just by your music choices. But, but like, I think that, the generational, trauma and experiences that I've had are definitely something that in the last probably 5-6 years, maybe longer now, time is flying by very quick. I've really taken a step to be like, this is not going to be the life I live. This is not going to be, the way I interact with people, because I've been in therapy for a while. I've learned a lot of these things. So what do you think about millennials and breaking that sort of generational trauma, and what have you seen in your experience?
I 100% agree with you. And I want to also just lift up men in that conversation as well, because I see a huge shift in men, especially coming forward, there was such a shame and a stigma around that previously. And even looking at millennial dads and the way that they show up for their children, I mean, wow. I think there's some statistics out there. I couldn't even like name them off the top of my head, but that they spend like 75% more time with their children than, or something like that. That's totally not a real statistic. I just made it up, but there is some statistic out there about that, and we see it. Yeah. They're just way more active. They're pursuing their own emotional intelligence in a way that I think a lot of men in the past were shamed before. But yeah, millennials overall, I feel like have just started to ask more questions, have started to recognize, ooh, I see this in myself and I don't love it, or I don't want to keep going like this. How can I be different? And they've sought out therapy and mental health support in order to shift and change. And that is a huge difference than generations prior, and I don't know if it's the level of safety that I don't know where that comes from, like I can't figure it out, but it does seem like there was something that paved the way for us to be able to get there to that place in a way that generations previously before us could not.
Yeah, that's a good, I don't know what it is either. I'm trying to think. I know, like for me, by the way, like my own therapeutic journey was very secretive and private when I started. Like I didn't tell anybody. Like I didn't even tell like my partner at the time when I started that I was doing, because I had so much shame about it. And I think a lot of it for me, and I think this probably relates, is like I found myself in the way I grew up and the even the people I probably surrounded myself at the time, there was a lot of pressure to not have emotions outside of like being angry, which is, you look around and like, I mean, I like to use the example of the NFL where like, our quarterback on the Bears is Caleb Williams, and he gets a lot of stuff for being sensitive and his facial expressions, and he cried after losing a game in college, and he gets shit on for it. And then people love when Tom Brady would be so mad he'd smash his helmet up against the side, right? And it's like that gets celebrated. He's passionate, he's angry, he wants to, and it's like, to me, that is the perfect dynamic and change that we're seeing now, is we're seeing so many people or so many men, specifically millennials and younger, I think, that are just like, hey, I actually don't want to have anger be my primary emotion. And I know that's what it was for me. It was like, I don't want to have being depressed and being angry as like the only two sides of Nick. Like there's a lot more going on in here that I want to figure out. So it was like, that was kind of like my kick. And I think people have maybe not that exact one, but something similar where it's like, I don't want to be angry all the time or shut down. It's like, those were the only two things I felt I could ever be growing up and even as a young adult.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking that first step to get some support, I think is the hardest, especially when there is such a stigma around it for specifically for men, especially. But I do feel like once you get in and you find a therapist that fits for you and you start recognizing those other emotions, because when you had said, I don't want anger to be my primary emotion, the first thing that came up for me is anger is so often a protective part that is protecting. And there is some anger that just comes out naturally that is the primary emotion. But so many times anger is a secondary emotion to a more vulnerable, a more hurt, a more, scary emotion for men that they never had the chance or opportunity to feel.
That's such a good point. And I kind of see that sometimes with like the men on my side of the family who sometimes listen to this show. So I don't want to throw them under the bus too much, but like, yeah, I can kind of like, as I've learned about myself and stuff, I can like look and see, okay, that anger is actually definitely not about the cup of milk that got spilled. It's about something else,
Absolutely.
And so I think that's such a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Like anger's the secondary emotion. It's the reactive piece.
Yes. Yeah.
So that, yeah, I've appreciated following you the last few weeks and the content that you put on there. And I encourage everyone to do that. And then before we hop into why I asked you on the show, I wanted to ask you what you think about sort of the normalization of like therapy, right? And people using the words like trauma and PTSD and complex PTSD, and sort of the way it's become in the pros and cons. Let me ask you this way. The pros and cons of having like so many people on social media educating about this, but at the same time, I feel like sometimes people throw these clinical terms around that they're not understanding completely. And I was just curious, like, do you see any pros and cons with your audience in the way that you have been able to educate about trauma and the nervous system and the role that everything kind of plays together? And what are some of the good things and some of the things you think people can do better?
Ooh, that is a good question, Nick. I feel like I never get asked that. I've been waiting to get on this soapbox for forever now. No, I really am. I love that you asked me that, because here's what I think about that. I think there is a pro to it. I think so much therapeutic language and so many experiences are being brought to the forefront, and just so many people feel less alone in that, right? Like I feel like even talking about my own childhood trauma and my content and stuff and my own experiences being a mom who had all of these traumatizing experiences, what I've learned is, one, like I am so far from being alone in my experience, and at some point in time in my life I felt completely alone, like, oh my gosh, no one else is going through this, I'm a freak, I'm weird. I had so much shame around it. And I think so many people feel so much shame around their experiences, particularly their experiences with mental illness or their experiences with trauma. And so I think people being out there and talking about it is just such a huge benefit to everybody who can feel connected and feel like they have a better understanding of what's happening inside of them. I feel like they also have so much more access to things that people would have never had access to before.
That's a good point.
And, I went to a workshop with Bessel van der Kolk, who is, big, huge trauma expert. And he had talked about how he worked with teen moms and how they had done all of this research around trauma. And he had created this program basically for teen moms where people come in and they help the teen mom, like, who had been through all this trauma herself, understand how to parent, right? Because they don't know what to do. And how that program ended up needing to be stopped because there wasn't enough money for it. But that there's basically all of this trauma all the time, all of this research being done around trauma all of the time. And there's all these people that are doing all these peer reviewed journals and everything, but it's not accessible to the people who actually need it. Because, maybe somebody who's a therapist who's going to go get their master's degree and spend tens of thousands of dollars on getting this education is going to be able to access it. And then people who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on therapy, on going to somebody in private practice, they might be able to learn some of it. But the people who genuinely need the access to it don't have the access
Don't
to
have
it.
it.
So I feel like content creation is such a beautiful way that is being done. Like people who would have never been able to understand a concept before because they're not going to read this like 200-page book with all this therapeutic language are able to just like have it broken down for them easily in like a 30-second clip, right?
Yeah.
So that's my pros. Cons. So many people are out there telling you things and they're saying they're acting as an expert, they're showing up as an authority, they're showing up as an authority. I mean, there are life coaches out there that have zero training, and I hate to be the typical therapist who like goes after the life coach, right? But
It's
they're
valid,
charging
though.
people hundreds of dollars for a 400, more than any therapist is charging, and they might have hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, and they're saying these things, and they're not accurate. Like they're not an expert, they're not trained, to work through these traumatic experiences with people, and in the end that can cause really great harm, really great harm. So I think that would be a negative of it. The other thing is that like the algorithm prioritizes extremes. And so it's really hard to have nuance in a post.
Oh, boy, I know that very well.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you do have nuance, your post is probably not going to get shown, or it's going to get trolled or whatever. It's like nuance is not acceptable. They want extremes.
Well, and I think that is a very good segue in a moment here to what we're going to talk about.
Yes. Okay.
And why I asked you on, which I'll give a background to. But I actually think I hadn't thought of that before, but I think the coaching I have, like I dabbled a little bit in coaching, and I felt like some of the people that were trying to work with me wanted a therapist, and it's like I can't be that. Like I don't want to pretend to be that. Like I can help you with some practical like things that I've learned that have worked for me, but like I don't want people to think that. And I think the problem with that, and I've noticed this just everywhere on social media, is you can convince people, and maybe you even are in some cases, you're an expert on something just by acting like an expert on something. And my favorite thing of all time was after Love is Blind, I would get a lot of people DMing me for relationship advice. I'm like, you guys, I'm 35. I had to go on a reality show to have a relationship that ended in a marriage. Like, I don't know if I'm the right guy to be asking for relationship advice, like TBD. But
Oh my
it was
gosh,
like
I love
perceived.
that.
Oh my God, I'm like, I literally would sit there and be like, why do people think I'm the person to ask relationship advice for? But it was like that perceived, you're an expert because you were on a reality show, right? And I think that it kind of taught me that you can pretend to be an expert or have some expertise in something, and you don't even have to have anything but that perceived idea, and people will follow you and buy from you. And now you've got the coaching industry, which I have lots of friends that are coaches, and they do great work, and they're not moonlighting pretending they're a therapist or something.
Yep.
So,
exactly. Yeah.
and the other reason I like to talk about that is my friend Dr. Isabel Morley. She wrote a book called "They're Not Gaslighting You," which she's talking about like the way therapy speak is thrown out by everyone. Like everyone's ex is a narcissist. And so I had her. Yeah,
I love that.
I had her as a guest to talk about the book. This was months ago now, probably January, February. And so whenever I have a mental health professional of any kind on, I like to get their take on it. Like, what are the good and bad? Because I think it's probably a net positive that we have so many people that are open to talking about therapy. But I also see many of times, and even have people in my life where they're like, oh, they were such a narcissist. I'm like, really? Or did you just disagree?
Like, yeah, that is such a good, like therapy speak is being so weaponized, and that really, when you call someone a narcissist, when we think about the reality of it, like narcissistic personality disorder, there's very small percentage of people that have that, right? And so it's like, but if you call them a narcissist, what does that mean? It's like an immediate, like there's no hope for them, right? So I don't have to figure out how to do this connection thing. I can just call you a narcissist and boom, like I win, right? Because you can't win against you're a narcissist. Like you're just a narcissist. No. So I think that does happen a lot, and I think it's dangerous and harmful.
Yeah, I totally agree. So it's interesting. It's very interesting because like I do really think it's a net positive. I can tell you, like, before I felt at the very beginning of all of this, when I started deciding I wanted to talk about mental health, it was very much like, oh, like a year and a half ago, I didn't talk to anyone about this stuff. Now I'm going to talk to the whole world about it. Like how times have changed and how I have changed, and how, I'm much more comfortable with the parts of me that I used to be very uncomfortable with. So those things I think are good when people are speaking about it. But I do also think there's a lot of people that take advantage of it and manipulate people, as you said. And that's the downside, right? There's a dark side to every moon.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I brought you on for, so a little background for everyone who's listening, and if you are listening, which most of you listen, you can come to YouTube if you want to see the visuals, because I'm going to share a post that Amber posted a few weeks back on September 21st. So you made this post, and I read this and was like, this is exactly what I've been wanting to see. And for those of you who are still listening, otherwise you can go to YouTube. I'll put the link down below. If America came to me for counseling, here's what I would say. And before we go kind of through this post, and then I want to get your thoughts on it, what prompted you to decide, one, you had something to say about our country needing counseling, and then two, taking that step to post it when it's in your expertise? What you say is definitely, I think, very valid and comes from a place of having a lot of experience. But anytime you post anything, as you know, controversial or political, the algorithm loves you, but the people hate you. So tell me what your thought process was when you came up with this piece of content that we're about to walk through, and what made you decide you wanted to post it.
Yeah. So I think what came up for me when I posted it, well, before I posted it, what day did I post it? What, you said it. It was September 21st.
It was
okay.
September 21st. Yeah.
Well, the first, like the prior week before this post, I had been having my own experience of everything happening in this country. And I was in such a state of complete dysregulation. And I will be totally honest with you. I was soaking up everything on my phone. I was doom scrolling my algorithm 100%. I was watching all the news. I was, every time I picked up my phone, checking the news. I was hate posting on Facebook. I was reading the comment section. I was doing everything I knew was the opposite of bringing my nervous system safety. But like what I was doing was getting caught up in everything that's been going on in our country. And I think my own process of bringing safety to my body and of talking with one of my closest family members, my little brother, who's like my best friend, who also has different political views than I do, connecting with him and talking with him and just listening to a sermon from my church. And then which I know already has like all of this like innuendo around it. I swear, like I don't want to come across as any kind of way, but there were different things coming up inside of me. And that is why I posted this. So that's the whole synopsis.
I got goosebumps from that, because I think there are probably so many people that will listen to you're doom scrolling, you're obsessed with you. I literally have people in my life that I'm like, you got to shut the news off. You're going crazy. Just shut it off. Take a break. Like the 24-hour news cycle has now turned into like a 1-hour news cycle, where every hour there's a new headline, and it's one disaster to another. It's pitting sides against each other. And I think the reason this resonated with me so much in that moment is one, I felt this way since 2016. Like I felt like we need to realize that like we actually have a lot more in common, and we can't let the news and the media and politicians divide us for their own benefit and profit. right?
Yes. Yes.
And so I had been working, I get into political campaigns and all that stuff. I had been doing that. But what that had really kind of done is taught me to believe that we are divided, but like I think we can come together around economics, right? And so like stuff like that. But then that seemed to not go well. And then in the last few years, I'm like, oh, maybe we can all come together around like let's make our food and healthy. Like, nope. It's now polarizing to say that we should have food dyes out of foods when we're the only country that does it. And so like the last like 2 years, maybe 3 years, I've turned to sort of like this nihilistic view of like and people, the way I talk about politics is objectively. And so a lot of people take that to mean that I'm right or take that to mean that I'm left. And sometimes the people want to have the opposite view of me or the same view. And the reality is like I'm a human being and I'm nuanced, as we've talked about. And I have a lot of things like if I were to describe myself, I'm a left hippie. Like I'm like a
Ooh.
1960s or 70s hippie who thinks everyone should have health care. We should have a 32-hour work week. And we shouldn't have any homeless people in the richest country ever. And these are free speech. That's what we're founded on. And like all
Yeah.
of these things is like what I think. And it's not right or left.
Exactly.
Like this is just what I
That's me
believe.
too. That's so me
Yeah.
too. If I had to like name it, I would be more in the like libertarian, if I had to
Yeah.
put a label on it. But this past I mean, now we're talking about but like I did vote Democrat this past election. But I would say, yeah, I'm same as you. Like I feel like that's so many people that I know. So many people I know are like, here's what I believe. And I feel like I'm not extreme in any way,
Homeless.
shape, or form.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you're like
exactly.
politically homeless.
Ooh, yes. I love that. Yes.
And then this was Charlie Kirk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need to get into that. I'd love to talk about that for 3 hours, but we don't need to talk about that. But I had posted something on Instagram about Charlie Kirk, and I don't like Charlie Kirk. Somewhere along the way, people think I like Charlie. I think he's an idiot. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I think someone that would go and bully college students who haven't fully formed their life experience to form their politics and then bully them, not my cup of tea. That's what I think he did.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to,
Absolutely.
we don't have, yeah, like whatever. People think what they want. But like, I just posted on social media, and it literally, like, I physically got sick after seeing some of the people that were commenting to me. And I just said, rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. Heart emoji, my blue heart emoji is like one of my like signature things to your family and loved ones. No violence, talk less, listen more. That's all I posted on a story. And I lost 3,000 followers, which I don't care about losing followers. I lost 3,000 followers within the time that story was up for 24 hours. And then I had like 50, 60-ish messages to me of 95% of them being people being like cruel. And by the way, like I follow politics closer than everybody else. Not everybody else, a lot of other people, I should say. I follow it a lot closer than a lot of other people. And like, I can tell you, there's never a political person that I think should die. Whether we disagree on everything or we agree on everything or they have a horrible intention. I don't think anybody should die for exercising their right to free speech in their politics. So
Absolutely.
don't like the guy, think he bullied college students, don't think that's cool, don't think he should die for it. That's that. But what I realized from these DMs, which is why this resonated so much with me, is I'm like, I'm not here saying anything except someone shouldn't die, and I hope that his family's okay. And that we should listen more to one another because we have a lot more in common. Like, do you see the theme? A lot more in common. But these post messages were coming in, and they were like, unfollow. How could you, support this misogynist? I'm like, I didn't support anything. I just don't support him getting killed. That's it. And it to me, like what made me physically sick is like the realization that we're so polarized that people are bloodthirsty for their opponent. Who's, by the way, not your opponent, they're your freaking neighbor. They're not your opponent. We're not against each other. We're all neighbors. We're all human beings. We're all trying to survive this thing called life. And so that, like, it made me like, physically ill. Like I had to talk about it with my therapist because I was like, I am not getting how so many people can be this bloodthirsty that they want someone to die for having different political views from them. And it kind of reminded me, like, I think a little bit of going through like a public divorce at the same time when people picked sides. And it was like
Yeah.
very, and at the time I just remember thinking like, wow, there are some people that really hate me and I didn't do anything. Like, it's not like it was a huge scandal or anything, and I just remember like those mean messages I would get, or people starting rumors that I had an affair, like all of this stuff, and just the hate that was coming towards me at that time. And it was like it just reminded me of that. And it was like, why would at the time I was like, why would people be so bloodthirsty for me? And now like to see that over an assassination, to me, it just made me sick to my stomach. To sum it up, made me sick to my stomach. I don't remember how long. I didn't post that much after that for a while because I was just like, it's gross to me that people would cheer
Yeah.
on the death of other people. And then I came across your post, 10 days, 11 days later, and I was like, this is exactly what we need more of. So I don't usually share content like this, but I just kind of want to like read through it really quick. Is that okay with
Absolutely.
you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And if there's something you want to elaborate on, just jump in.
Okay.
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 Okay, so to recap to everyone, this is the post that connected me to following Amber on social media, integrative trauma therapist, link below. I encourage you to follow. So to recap again, if America came to me for counseling, here's what I would say. Think of the right and the left as a couple on my couch, both desperate to be heard, both convinced the other is the problem. Both quick to anger, both feeling absolutely hopeless, both overwhelmed with fear and blame. Here's the truth. They can't hear each other right now because both are stuck in survival mode. When you're triggered, your nervous system shuts off access to your prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain that allows you to listen, to understand, and to stay open. Instead, survival mode flips the switch to fight or flight. Your walls go up, defenses flare, every word feels like an attack. Sounds so familiar to me, everyone in their politics these days. That's my commentary. And let's be real. News outlets, politicians, and social media platforms fuel this cycle. They benefit when we're divided. They profit when we're consumed with fear and filled with doom. And it's important to acknowledge that what is happening in our country right now does make us all very unsafe regardless of side. Yet in order to bring significant change, we have to anchor ourselves in safety. That is the paradox. We cannot control the world's chaos, but we can ask, how do we get ourselves safe enough? Safe enough to notice what still connects us, safe enough to remember we do share beliefs. This week, every client I saw, no matter their politics, was deeply disturbed by the Charlie Kirk incident. Everyone I know is heartbroken about Gaza. Everyone I know is devastated by the news of more children being murdered by school shootings. We have more overlap than we think, but we'll never see it if we stay trapped in fear, addicted to outrage, and caught in our echo chamber algorithms. If America was my client, I'd tell them, your real enemy isn't each other. It's the systems that divide you, dysregulated, and blind to your shared humanity. I have like goosebumps again. Every time I've read it a few times, and then I read it again today to remind myself and you put that so elegantly. How did you get this on paper, especially when you yourself were feeling so dysregulated? Because I think everybody needs to hear this, and I think most people should be able to relate to it, but we'll talk about the comments in just a second here.
Yeah. Well, like my process with creating most of my content is just kind of like putting it out. Like, so I'll just start on Canva, right? Like, and I'll be like typing in what I'm thinking. But like each piece is really crucial. And even when you read through that, right? Like as you were reading it, you said you started feeling goosebumps. And as you were reading it out loud, like I haven't read it, I kind of glanced at it before because I'm like, how am I what am I going to touch base with Nick on about this post? But like when you read it out loud, I was kind of like, I noticed this safety kind of like coming into my body. Like I kind of noticed that there was this, and I don't know how it made you feel, but like maybe it, and I hope it did bring safety like to some people. Like maybe some people felt for a minute like, maybe there is stuff that connects me, you know? And so that is kind of my process. And I usually don't share on Instagram what I'm going through something, like when I am going through something at that moment, because it is very vulnerable. And it's just for my own boundaries. I don't like to do it. And this post is a good example as to why, because everybody does have their feelings about it. And it is such a very divisive thing that's happening in our country right now. I didn't expect it to be as controversial as it actually turned out to be. But I just recognized that these systems that are keeping us divided, and I've felt it. You said 2016. Yes, I do believe that it started around there, but I'll also just say like COVID was really like a breaking point as well, and we have continued to be traumatized as a nation, right? And when we are traumatized, what we know about a trauma response is it's like a very extreme response. And so these responses have continued to grow and continue to divide us more and more and more, to where what you had said, like bloodthirsty, like there is this lack of seeing the other as human. And when, you know, something that like with this post, prior to this post, the lieutenant governor here in Indiana, he's very religious. And I had come across something he had posted about anybody who's on the left is a demon. This is war, right? And so seeing a lot of these radical things come out, just like calling somebody a demon, for instance, right? It kind of goes back to like the narcissist thing. Like there's no winning against that. You're taking the humanity out of another person. When you call them a demon, there's nothing I can say that's going to help you feel safe if you're like, you're a demon. So anything you say is evil, right? And I see this happening in a lot of different realms. And especially in the algorithms, especially in the news, and now even in people who are in office, like who are supposed to be representing the entirety of our nation, the entirety of our state, not just the right, not just the left, right? And to publicly condemn a whole group of people, it's extremely scary. And so I wanted to think of how can I anchored myself first in safety. Like I said, I listened to something that brought safety back to me. And that was a sermon from my own church that I felt like had a similar message to this and really like gave me hope. And I was like thinking, what would I do as a therapist? How can I do this? How can I show up differently than how everybody else is showing up? Because I do follow a lot of people on the left that are left leaning, and sometimes it is really aggressive, and it is really, and I'm like, this is kind of taking
both sides.
Oh, it totally is. Yeah.
The left is like, you're a bunch of fascists, or what? This was the one, like Hillary Clinton in 2016, Donald Trump in his basket of deplorables. I remember that because I was like, first of all, how ignorant of you to refer to half of the country as deplorables.
Yeah.
And by the way, like I said, I'm a left hippie, but like my family is conservative and they're not deplorables. Ooh. My friends that are conservative are not deplorables. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of language, like you're saying these extremes or the right, when it's the demons, it's the radical left. It's like the radical left and the radical right probably all want to live a life where they're not living paycheck to paycheck and risking, wondering where their next meal's coming from. Maybe I bet they all want to take a vacation sometimes. And I would imagine that they want the cost of groceries to go down. I would imagine they'd like to own a house. I would imagine that they'd like to have a safe place for their kids.
Everybody wants those
things. We can't even talk about that.
And we can't talk about it. Like, we're not even talking about the issues anymore, right? Like, we're just spewing hate onto each other. And so it's like, that's where the nervous system does come into play. Cause it's like, we're really we are acting as puppets, and they're like the people that are, exactly, that are above are pulling the strings, and it's benefiting them. Like, it's not benefiting us. It's not It's not benefiting us,
No.
left or right, at all.
And how is hating your neighbor, and I keep saying neighbor on purpose, your radical left neighbor or your radical right neighbor and everyone in between, like, how is it helping you to hate them? Just because they believe something different than you. And I'm not saying, like, I don't want any of, like, the school shootings. It's like they're a dime a dozen, which is, like, disgusting. And you know what's interesting is, what do you hear from the left? We need to ban guns. What do you hear from the right? We have a mental health crisis. I have an idea. Why don't we ban guns and address the mental health crisis, or address the mental health crisis and then see if the gun stuff changes? Or, yeah, like, but what is the core value there? We all want to stop the school shootings. So
Yeah.
why don't we talk reasonably with each other about ways we can do that, and let's debate, because that's how this country is supposed to be.
Yeah,
We all want the school shootings to stop.
And so many of us feel so passionately about that, and what comes in the way, right? Because it's not so much about banning guns. Or even like most people on the left, like, or a lot of people on the left have guns. Like, they're fine with guns. A lot of people on the right aren't like, we just want to have our guns and just like be throwing them out. And like, you know what I mean?
Those are the stereotypes that make us think.
Exactly. Like, we're just trying to be reasonable. I want to like say reasonable fucking people, right? Like, that's all we're trying to be. That's all we're trying to be. But like, it's the extremes, and it is a social media thing. It is an algorithm thing, and it is a news thing. And what are all of those like systems controlled by, right? Like billionaires, and they're profiting. They are profiting. And so I think
they're
profiting. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say they're profiting, and they're keeping that divide, because when the way the social media, and I'm a marketing professional, like, and I can tell you, what I know about social media algorithms is that what they're actually trying to do overall is sell you something. Okay. So like, they're putting you in an algorithm to put ads in front of you, because the social media companies make money off of ads primarily. Okay. So their goal there is to give you these labels, or to put you in these algorithms that are going to have you buy stuff. Okay. Then you've got people who are going to be mostly around like-minded people in an echo chamber, having their beliefs reinforced by the content that they're seeing on social media, but that is ultimately to sell them something. Okay. So like, you're being manipulated on so many levels that you're being taught to be in an echo chamber, hate your neighbor, all so that you can be sold something.
And the best way to sell somebody, and I know this is as a therapist, you know, the best way to sell somebody something is make them feel afraid. Like, keep them so afraid, right? Because they're going to feel that sense of urgency. When we're in fight or flight, we're like, we just need to take action now. We just need to do something. And so, they're just, it's all manipulation.
Yeah, it is all manipulation, and we're all subject to it, by the way. And, you know, someone once said to me this really cool analogy. It was on this show. He said, people in the city versus people in the country, right? He's like, people in the city, they want to go watch their football games at a sports bar. People in the country want to crack open a beer and watch it in their living room. We're all just watching football. And it's like, that's it's a simple way to put the difference, but like, those are the types of differences we have, but we're all watching our football. We're just doing it in different ways. And it's like, that's the thing that gets so frustrating to me, is because you're being sold these caricatures of people, and it's not true. You can go talk to someone who you've labeled, a Trumper or a radical right person, and be a total lefty, and you guys have things in common. And you'll find those real quickly if you just don't hate each other out of the gate. But we're being taught to hate each other out of the gate because of these algorithms, because of the content, because of the news. And by the way, I encourage, so I've bragged about this before. I'm not proud of it, but this is the objectiveness. I predicted Trump was going to win 2 years before it happened, and I won $100 from my friend Jake. Shout out, Jake. Thank you for paying me on that night. I won $100. And I didn't want him to win. really didn't like either of the candidates. I thought they were both terrible. But the whole point that I want to make with that is like, I can objectively look at it, and I know people that voted both ways. And I also have had conversations with them where we argue and debate, but then we also come together and we all agree on stuff. And I know it can be done, but like, you can't let the news and, you know, the news that you watch or the social media you consume, you can't let that dictate and tell you what to think. You have to get information from both sides. And I've encouraged both sides, listen to podcasts of your political opposition, get their point of view, because a lot of the stuff that's, you know, I could have easily been programmed to be a crazy lefty right now and just hate all the Trumpers and all of that stuff. But like, I didn't, because I understand the nuance. But like, so many, if you listen to some of the podcasts and the interviews of like normal people, they're not crazy radicals. They have things that they're worried about and concerned about, and they deserve to be listened to as an American. And the same goes for the other side. We all deserve to be listened to. And it's okay to disagree. You disagree with everyone. You disagree with your spouse, you disagree with your friends, you disagree. I have disagreements with my dog, right? That's okay. It's okay to disagree. That's what makes us human. That's the nuance. And I just feel like we don't have it anymore. And again, to come back to your post here, I think that when I read this, I felt for the first time in a long time that like I wasn't alone in the way that I think about this stuff. And I think that's what's so good about this post and why I messaged you, because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was arguing with someone or crazy. And it was just like, here's an honest assessment and how we're behaving. And it just clicked with me. It is, yes, everybody is so traumatized by all of this, and then re-traumatized and triggered by like the algorithms and hating your neighbors and the news and the media and all this stuff. And we all just need to like take a deep breath and come sit down on the couch and hear each other out. And when I think about you know, couples fighting or couples counseling, whenever I talk, you know, I try to think of it, and it's very hard, especially in the moment. So this is not a science, and I'm sure my girlfriend would tell you all the time, sometimes I'm unreasonable in a disagreement, but which I'll admit I am. But
because you're in fight or flight.
I'm in fight or
you're
flight.
You're not using your prefrontal cortex. Okay.
Exactly. It's like, if you can separate the problem from the relationship in each other, and it's like, okay, we have a problem here where we're misunderstanding each other on this. How can we fix that instead of going at each other? Because as a country, we're going at each other instead of being like, okay, we have a problem here. We have a lot of problems. We have a lot of these problems. Let's separate them from us, and let's talk about how we can get through this and come to some sort of solution that isn't ideal for both of us, but maybe works for both of us.
Yes, absolutely. And I think something that came up for me as you were just talking to me about that is John Gottman. He is a really famous marriage therapist. Him and his wife do a lot of stuff. And he talks about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And basically, if these 4 things are present in a marriage, it's 90% or like way more likely that you're going to end up getting a divorce. And those things are contempt. And contempt is basically like you're disgusting, like an attack against somebody. It's like a deep, like you're just attacking someone's character. You have contempt for that person. You're kind of mocking them. The other one is like stonewalling, where you just like shut down, you walk away, you don't even talk to them. So there's these 4 different things, and we're all doing them, right? In America. And then what he also talks about is like there's always the perpetual problem in relationships. And it's not about solving the problem, because the problem will always be there. It's about the way that you fight about it. And if you can basically like control these 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and, you know, try to have things like a soft startup, where you're like coming into a conversation and you're like, hey, so I noticed that, you know, you liked this post calling everybody on the left demons, and I was just curious. What's coming up for you around that, right? So that would be an instant, like a soft startup, where like attack is like, you called me a demon. Well, you're a Christian nationalist who's evil and blah, blah, you know, right? Like where we're just attacking, attack. And it doesn't actually help anything. like you said. It's basically
labels.
it's just
Yeah.
labels. And so I definitely think that that could also be applied here, right? But the other thing that was coming up for me as you were talking was just that how much trauma there is around certain things, and how when we talk about those certain things, when we see, you know, something like racism being actively happening, when we see the things that's happening around immigration and things are being said, and that how many generations of different populations have been traumatized by those very things. I think that's also super important to acknowledge in the subject here, right? Which I didn't
Yeah.
put specifically in my post, but I do think a lot of people commented about this. And I did say, like, it is not your job to be actively engaging or changing anyone's mind who is being abusive towards you, who is being racist towards you. This is just saying that you can't take a whole group of people and say they're all racist based on who they voted for, because there's so much more nuance than that. But if you did vote for someone and you are seeing things that are happening that are racist, it is your job to figure out other people's experiences, right? As well, and be curious about those, because maybe you don't understand it. Maybe it's not a big trigger for you because you've never experienced it. Okay, well then what is their trigger around, right? And so I think that that's also something that I don't see happening very often. Like, we're not curious about other people's experiences. And the more curious we get, the more we want to know, instead of just immediately like closing the door and just being like, well, fuck you. Sorry. Screw you.
You can swear.
Okay.
You can swear.
Screw you. You voted for Trump, so I don't care. You know, like, be curious about what their experience is. And that for me was part of why I posted this, because I did talk to a family member who voted differently. And as I was in my own scary doom scroll, the America's ending, like, we're being taken, what's going on, right? He really calmed me down. He was like, yeah, it is really, like, I could see that. And he just told me, like, what are you watching? What are you listening to?
Yeah.
And he actually explained to me, you know, a lot of people felt like that when they were forced to get the vaccine, or they were going to be fired from their jobs. And it was like, as someone who wasn't in that threat, it didn't even like cross my mind when this was happening, right? And when he said that, it just like totally shifted I was like, oh. Okay, I guess I never saw that before. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I never thought about that before, which sounds
which is because it didn't apply to you, and it wasn't part of your experience. And I think that's what we're lacking, to your point. I've never like talked about this from like my personal, but like, I did not get the COVID vaccine, and I had my life change significantly because of it. I couldn't go to restaurants. I couldn't go to grocery stores without wearing a mask. I had to get tested to go to work every day. Every time I wanted to go to the office, I had to get tested. And like, when does HR get into my medical files? Like, there were so many things there, and I will never. And so again, like, I am for freedom. People can do what they want to do, right? Like, there's people that it was good for them to take the vaccine. That's, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, which is probably what would get clipped on that comment. But like, I'm for freedom and for people doing that. But like, I will never forget how I was no longer allowed to participate in society because I didn't get that. And so and again, that people will call me an extreme right anti-science person for that. And the reality is like, I'm all for science. I love science. That same science that says food dyes aren't healthy, that I think should be out of the food. I love science. You know what I mean? So it's like, but like, it became this thing. And so like, when I hear people and that's their big issue, like, I get it. Like, I know I felt like I wasn't allowed to participate in society. And that is a feeling that I still to this day think about sometimes, and people don't want to talk about it. And it's not because and so the people that voted for that are people that are that's important to them. Like, that's how a lot of them felt. And I know that feeling.
Absolutely. But yeah. And that's just something that I feel like that's such a perfect example of, like, it didn't like click to somebody who wasn't like going to lose their job if they didn't get it. but who chose to get it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was just like, but when hearing it from that perspective is like, oh, that could have felt really like your freedom was being like impeached on, and that's scary, you know?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
it
yeah,
was.
I think hearing other people's experiences and being able to take them in is just so important and crucial. And it's impossible to do when we are consistently in our fight or flight and in our echo
Yeah.
chambers.
Yeah. And I know we've got to wrap up in like a minute here. I want to ask you one question and then I'll give you a chance to ask me anything. What is your advice to people to regulate their nervous system around news and politics?
Yeah. Great question. And I had a feeling you were going to ask me about this, so I was going to try to prepare an answer, but I didn't at all. But I feel like it's something I know because I talk to my clients about it all the time. I would just say in terms of regulation, you have to be bringing safety to your body regularly. And every time we pick up our phone, this is what I always tell my clients. Every time we pick up our phone, whether it's to read a text, whether it's to check the news, whether it's to go on social media, we are inviting someone else in to destroy our safety. Right? Like we could pick up our phone and we could read a text and it's like, somebody's starting to fight with us via text message. I mean, people still do that, right? And here we were having an amazing day. We can go on our Instagram and be like, dude, I'm just going to go scroll for a second and get bombarded with messages of unsafety and bombarded with hatred and bombarded. So every time we do that, we are literally inviting someone else in to take away our feelings of safety, to take away our regulation. And so just really being mindful of that. Like, how do you want to start your morning? Do you want to start your morning waking up and drinking a hot cup of coffee in your bed, quietly listening to the birds chirp, maybe watching, a funny show? Or do you want to start your morning with doom and gloom and somebody like attacking you? You're going to fascism, Nazi, like it's just like, how do you want to start your day, right? And that has nothing to do with not being informed, right? Because we can be regulated, we can get informed, and then when we're regulated, we have more ways to like mobilize to actually do something that's productive. Excuse me, I spit a little bit, but yeah. So I would just say be really mindful of what you're consuming. I saw this, my pastor said this. He was like, you become what you consume. And that really shifted what I was like, everything I had been thinking. I'm like, man, what am I consuming day in, day out? And how is that helping the world? How is that helping me? How is that helping my situation? It's not. It's not. Right. It's not helping. And we might be pulled to look, to check, to doom scroll because our nervous system's telling us you need more information to feel more safe. But we actually don't need more information every single second of the day. So I would say set really firm and healthy boundaries around your phone and prioritize bringing safety to your body. And then what you are passionate about, however you're going to help the world, however that looks, plan out for that and do that in little bits, like 20-minute increments every single day in a way that helps you feel more in control. And maybe try to be more connected to other people outside of your phone. Get off the internet, like connect to your neighbors. I tried to host a neighborhood get together, regardless of who is in what party. And I don't know who's in what party if I'm not on Facebook. If I'm not friends with them on social media, we actually don't really talk about it much.
Yeah, because you're just normal, nuanced human beings trying to enjoy your neighbors.
Hanging out, like barbecuing, talking about stuff, and then join groups of like-minded people who are doing things that feel actionable, that are for a good cause. I feel like that is so huge. So we need to feel like we're in control of something. And we are. We do have some stakes in it. We do have some control, and we can do things. We can make a difference. So stay off your social media. Saying that as a content creator feels so silly, but that is like the simplest tool I can give you all. Stay off your social media.
All right. Before we head out, I'm going to give you a chance to ask me anything. So the floor is yours.
Okay. So my question for you is, how have your own political views evolved throughout your lifetime?
Ooh. Oh my gosh. I thought I was going to get a quick one. Just kidding. Um, so it's interesting because they change constantly. And initially growing up, I grew up pretty conservative. And I would say like in the early 2000s when I started with 9/11, I was a journalist on my high school newspaper during that time. And I had written some stories around it in different ways. And I was highly on the, I would say still on the right. And then as I tried to get into the economy coming out of college and stuff like that, and the economy sucked in 2007 and 8, which was, me coming out into the world. And then I realized like, hey, actually like economics matter more than, how I was raised. And so I kind of shifted on the Obama train. I worked on his campaign in my college
Oh.
campus. Yeah, and I was still in journalism, so I was, on the newspaper in college, and staying close to it that way. I had some really interesting experiences in journalism in college, especially as editor in chief, where I had to make some tough decisions that, it really opened my eyes to censorship. So around I would say like 2012. So I voted for Obama for healthcare and school because I was the first person in my family to go to college, graduated
That's
college, I should
awesome.
say. Yeah. So there was that, and then like the healthcare thing because I didn't have healthcare, I didn't have a job, I couldn't be on my parents at the time, and so that kind of put me in like the Democratic camp. And then in 2012 and stuff, I kind of fell out of politics a little bit. I wasn't as inspired by anyone. And then in 2016, here's the left hippie in me. I was inspired by Bernie Sanders and everybody getting health care, everybody getting an education, and us becoming European style in terms of public services. And so then I was kind of like, well, I'm on that side of the Democratic Party now. And then we all know how that went. And then from the 2016 to 2020, like I wasn't surprised Trump won because like the stuff he was saying, like I could see it in my family. I could see like, my dad had lost his job when we were younger in manufacturing. My uncle had lost a lot of jobs in tool and die manufacturing. And like I could see how it was inspiring people in that way to like say, hey, we're gonna bring jobs back to this country that we sent overseas. And so that kind of like shifted. And that's when I started to sort of like see that sides were being formed and stuff. And I was kind of like, I'm actually not on either of these sides completely. Like, I think it'd be great if we had manufacturing jobs. They made life very hard for my family growing up. And then it's like at the same time, I still want everyone to get health care. And I'm like, I kind of like stopped picking sides at some point. And I'm like, here's the issues that matter to me. And it doesn't matter what party you're in. If you address these issues that are really important to me, then you're going to get my vote. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep championing these issues. So my political journey now, my number one issue used to be healthcare for all. I think everyone should have healthcare, and I think that nobody should go broke for getting sick. Number two, I always have been very bothered by the number of homeless people we have in this country, being the richest country ever. Now, my number one issue is censorship. I don't think anyone should be censored, and I think we live in a very 1984, which the book's up there, 1984-esque world we're in right now. And so to me, it's like, it's about the issues. And the issues are, I'm sick of being in wars across the whole entire world. Censorship, I'm against censorship. I think everyone should have health care. I think that we need to do something about violence and school shootings and all of these things. I don't have all the answers, but I want to talk about it. And then I don't think that we should have anyone that goes hungry or is homeless in our country. Like, I just don't think that that's the kind of country we should be. And I think those are my issues. So if a Democrat wants to come get my vote by having solutions for that, a Republican, a Libertarian, a Green Party, someone else who's completely independent, come get my vote. So that's kind of where my journey is. I vote on issues, not on parties.
I love that. Yeah. And I bet so many people relate to that too. I know I definitely do too. So
yeah,
thank you
I
so
think
much
a lot
for
of us
that.
do. Amber, I want to thank you again for coming on. We're going to have to do this again because I feel like there's a lot more we could talk about your work. But where can people connect with you online?
So www.theintegrativetraumatherapist.com. I have some resources, some free resources on there, and you can join my email list. You can also find me on Instagram at the Integrative Trauma Therapist. Or actually, I'm
And
sorry, just integrative trauma therapist. There's no the.
That's okay. All of those links are down in the show notes. You
Yeah.
can click through. I actually went through your website. You've got great content on there, ebooks, journals, lots of stuff for people. So go check that out. And thanks again so much for coming on. And thank you. I'm taking you down to the wire here on time, but thank you so much for coming, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So nice to meet you.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.